Scott Fisher was a famous climbing guide who had a big impact on the world of mountain climbing. He was born on December 24, 1955, and his love for the mountains started when he was 14 years old and saw an exciting documentary about climbing. From that moment on, he dedicated his life to pursuing his passion for climbing mountains. Fisher learned how to climb and then moved to Seattle, a beautiful place in the Pacific Northwest of the United States. In 1984, he started a company called Mountain Madness with his friend. At first, they focused on guiding people in the Cascade and Olympic mountain ranges, but they soon became successful and started leading expeditions to mountains all around the world. As Fisher went on more and more climbing trips, he gained a reputation as an excellent climber and teacher. In 1984, he and his team accomplished the amazing feat of being the second group ever to successfully climb the difficult Breach Icicle on Mount Kilimanjaro in Africa. People were impressed by his natural leadership skills and his knowledge as an experienced climbing instructor. However, in May of 1996, something terrible happened that changed Fisher's life forever. While descending Mount Everest during a severe storm, he and several other climbers got stuck on the mountain. Sadly, 8 climbers, including Fisher, lost their lives in what became one of the deadliest disasters in the history of mountain climbing. Throughout his impressive climbing career, Fisher had big ambitions. In January 1986, he climbed Mount Kilimanjaro in Africa as part of a fundraising effort that raised an impressive $1 million for CARE. Fisher's climbing achievements included famous peaks like El Capitan, Mount Blanc, Fitzroy, Aconcagua, and Mount Kenya, among others. He was the first American to reach the summit of Lhotse, the 4th highest mountain in the world. Fisher was actively involved in philanthropy and supported causes like AIDS research and international relief efforts through organizations like CARE. He cared not only about reaching the mountain summits, but also about preserving the natural beauty of these majestic places. He led the Climb for the Cure expedition on Denali in Alaska in 1993, which raised an impressive $280,000 for the American Foundation for AIDS Research. In 1994, Fisher led the Ares Environmental Project, a big effort to clean up years of debris. His team successfully removed 250 oxygen bottles and a staggering 5,000 pounds of garbage from the dangerous slopes of the South Col. This remarkable achievement earned Fisher the prestigious David Brower Award, which recognized his exceptional contribution to protecting the environment. Additionally, in 1994, Fisher and Rob Hall achieved the extraordinary feat of climbing Mount Everest without supplemental oxygen, adding to Fisher's already impressive record of scaling 6 of the world's highest peaks across 7 continents. 2 years later, he conquered K2, one of the toughest peaks in the Karakoram Range, and he did it without using extra oxygen. Fisher showed his dedication to his fellow climbers when, during their first attempt to climb Gasherbrum III, he and his team selflessly abandoned their own climb to help rescue other climbers in need. In 1995, Scott Fisher took on the difficult task of climbing Broad Peak in the Karakoram Mountains. Despite facing a dangerous storm that claimed the lives of many climbers, Fisher led his expedition with skill and caution, ensuring the safety of his team. His leadership and decision-making abilities were crucial in navigating through the perilous conditions and successfully descending the mountain. In May 1996, Fisher took on the role of guide for a team of 18 climbers aiming to conquer Mount Everest. Together with fellow guides Neil Breidelman and Anatoly Bukriv and their clients, they embarked on this ambitious journey. They were also assisted by 8 Sherpas, led by Lobsang Jangku Sherpa. Their summit push began on May 6th, starting from base camp. The team faced many challenges during their ascent, progressing through the night from Camp 4 at the South Col and finally reaching the summit in the early afternoon of May 10th. However, from their vantage point, they observed a storm brewing lower on the mountain. They were unsure of its intensity, whether it was just cloud cover or a snowstorm. Despite the uncertain weather, they remained focused on their goal, providing support to those in need and assisting those who required special attention. Scott Fisher pushed through despite his fatigue from the strenuous climb, but the effects of high altitude and exhaustion began to take a toll on him. He started experiencing symptoms of high-altitude sickness, such as high-altitude cerebral edema or high-altitude pulmonary edema, or possibly both. As the afternoon wore on, the winds became extremely strong, reaching speeds of 75 miles per hour, and the snowfall intensified, reducing visibility to just a few steps ahead. Communication became difficult, requiring shouting to be heard even by someone standing nearby. The already challenging conditions worsened significantly. It was in this incredibly challenging environment that the fate of Scott Fisher and the rest of the team was sealed. The tragic events unfolded on Mount Everest, where several climbers lost their lives, in one of the deadliest tragedies in the mountain's history. Scott Fisher's extraordinary climbing career came to a heartbreaking end amidst the powerful winds, blinding snow, and the indomitable spirit of the world's highest peak. As the storm raged on, the climbers became disoriented and scared, but Scott Fisher remained calm and showed great leadership. Despite being very cold and close to hypothermia, he gathered the remaining climbers together and kept them united. In the midst of the chaos, two of the stronger climbers found their way back to Camp 4 and collapsed from exhaustion. They were the first to reach safety, thanks in part to Fisher's orders to evacuate the stranded climbers. Fisher selflessly led multiple trips to guide and rescue his team members, bringing them back to camp. By 4:30 a.m. the next day, everyone had made it to Camp 4, except for Fisher himself. Fisher, together with Sherpa Lobsang Xiangbu, started descending from the summit around 4 p.m. However, the storm intensified and engulfed the upper slopes of the mountain. Fisher struggled to breathe and clung to the southeast ridge balcony. Realizing the danger, he urged Sherpa Xiangbu to go down and get help. Fisher's only chance of survival was to reach Camp 4, located 450 meters below at the South Col, where it was relatively safer. In freezing conditions with strong winds, Fisher fought against the elements, each step a testament to his determination. But the harsh conditions took a toll on him. Exhausted and battered, he collapsed in the snow just 50 meters below the balcony. Struggling to stay alive, Fisher showed signs of severe hypothermia, such as paradoxical undressing. He took off his warm jacket, leaving himself exposed and vulnerable to the storm, alone on the dangerous mountain as night fell. Over the next 15 hours, as the storm gradually calmed on May 11th, two Sherpas reached Fisher. They were able to retrieve one climber, but Fisher remained in a deep coma, barely breathing. The situation was very serious, as the brave mountaineer teetered between life and the unforgiving grip of the mountain. Fisher faced slim chances of survival in the face of danger. His companions worked hard to rescue him from the mountain's grip, but it was a difficult task. Finally, after 2 days, Gao and Beck Weathers were airlifted to safety by a brave helicopter rescue team on Monday. Despite the efforts of other climbers, like Book Reeve, to reach Fisher, the harsh weather made it impossible for them to reach him. Reeve eventually made it to Camp 2 on Saturday, but by then Fisher had already passed away. His lifeless body lay on the mountain, just below the balcony, a sad reminder of the risks involved in mountaineering. Fisher's presence at around 8,400 meters silently spoke of the toll that Everest can take. The fall of 1996 brought more tragedy to Fisher's climbing community. Book Reeve, from another Everest expedition, lost his life in an avalanche. Keith and Christine Bhattacharya, who had bought Fisher's climbing company, also died in an avalanche on a Chinese mountain in December of that year. These heartbreaking losses remind us of the dangers faced by those who venture into the mountains. Scott Fisher was a determined climber who inspired and motivated those around him. He found great satisfaction in guiding his clients to achieve new heights. Though he passed away at the young age of 40, his spirit lives on as a symbol of strength and forever connected to the mountains he loved. Scott Fisher was a man who loved the mountains like no one else. His determination and pursuit of extraordinary experiences touched the lives of many people. Scott Fisher wasn't just passionate about climbing mountains for himself. He believed in the power of mountaineering to change people's lives, and he wanted to make a positive difference. His goals went beyond seeking fame and fortune. As others climb Mount Everest, Fisher's presence serves as a constant reminder of the seriousness and risks involved in mountaineering. Even in death, his spirit continues to soar, forever linked to the majestic peaks he cherished.